Craftsman Days are here at Lowe's with big savings on the tools you need. Right now, get a free select tool when you buy the Craftsman V20 2-pack battery kit. Whether it's the backyard, the bathroom, or beyond, Craftsman has the tools to help you power through and get the project done right. Because DIYing is unpredictable, but your tools shouldn't be. Shop Craftsman at Lowe's today. Valid through 6/18 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
According to Saltus Wealth, 41% of high net worth individuals report having been victims of financial crime. Are you next? High-profile individuals like you need more than off-the-shelf solutions. You need concierge digital security from Reputation Defender. It's not just another app, it's a team of experts using best-in-class tools to protect you and your family, covering virtually every aspect of your digital life. Visit reputationdefender.com/success to learn more. That's reputationdefender.com/success.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Good morning from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined by one of our good friends in segment number 2 as we're going to be joined by Matt Josephs, aka Mid-Major Matt, and we're going to be chatting with him about what we've seen here in the first 2 months of the season, how he's been taking a look at some of these, shall we say, fades, how he's been playing a lot of the prop markets, and so much more. And then in the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Sunday as we touch them all. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, everything is powered by Edge Boost. Over at Edge Boost, they make sure that bettors are able to access their funds whenever they want to for whatever they need. And when you go to edgeboost.bet, utilize the promo code of Greg, GREG. That'll get you $1 for $1 match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Saturday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Colorado Rockies lose again as for the Colorado Rockies, they lose in pretty convincing fashion, 13-1. The New York Yankees lay it to them. Aaron Judge, he's able to get home run number 18 of the season. That comes off of Kyle Freeland. For Freeland, 8 runs, 4 of which were earned. There were a few errors out there on the field that hurt them, but that's what we've been seeing a lot from the Rockies, who have been actually a pretty good under team thus far this season. For the Colorado Rockies, 21 overs, 29 unders, and a few pushes along the way, but in this one, it goes overwhelming because they just had absolutely no pitching whatsoever, as you had 2 scoreless innings in this one, actually from Juan Mejia, so good for him, but you had in this one Angel Shavili give up 3 runs in a third of an inning. Ryan Rollison gives up 2 runs over the course of 2 innings, and for Mad Max Fried, he just continues to be so dominant for the New York Yankees. 7 1/3 innings, allows 1 run, and then Ian Hamilton from there, 1 2/3 innings scoreless. The Chicago White Sox, they lay it on the Texas Rangers. This by a count of 10-5 for the Rangers. Yeah, Jack Leiter gave a relatively solid start. 2 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings. Did allow a home run. Joshua Palacios, 3rd home run of the campaign. Then Caleb Ousley, a guy from the great state of Wisconsin, he gives one up to Mike Tauchman, his 1st home run of the campaign for Ousley. Gives up 2 runs over the course of 2 innings. Obi Milner, 3 runs, 2 of which weren't given up without getting it out of the bullpen. Jacob Webb, 3 runs in 2/3 of an inning, and Luke Jackson, a third of an inning scoreless. And for Adolis Garcia, he was able to go yard in this one as well. Home run number 7 of the campaign for him. That was off of Miguel De Castro, gives up a run in an inning. Bryce Wilson, a little bit of a surprise starter in this one. 4 runs, 2 of which were earned, gave it up in his 4 innings. But Mike Facil has been a really good long guy. 3 scoreless innings, and Brady Eisert, he was able to lend a scoreless inning as well for the Houston Astros. They've been pretty solid to the under thus far this season. Now 21 overs, 29 unders, and 2 pushes, and they get it done against the Seattle Mariners by a count of 2-1 as Brian Wu said woohoo to a good start on his end. 2 unearned runs allowed in his 6 innings, so he did have a throwing error that costed him. Casey Lugumina, 2 scoreless innings, but how about this from Houston? Framber Valdez gives up 1 run in 6 innings. Bennett Sosa, Brian Abreu, Josh Hader, they're all able to turn a scoreless inning. But Cincinnati Reds are able to turn a 6-4 win win over the Chicago Cubs. As for the Cubs, one of the best over teams in all baseball. As a matter of fact, the best over team in all baseball. 31 overs, 17 unders, and 4 pushes, as they did get a pair of home runs in this one. You had Justin Turner down for what? Get his first home run of the season. Then Carson Kelly, 9th home run of the season off of Emilio Pagan. Pagan gives up that solo home run in his inning of work, and then you had Graham Ashcraft give up a run in 1 1/3 innings. Tony Santillan, 1 run surrendered in inning, and for Andrew Abbott, gives up just the lone solo home run in 5 2/3 innings of work. You had Ellie De La Cruz go deep off of Colin Ray. He said hip hip hooray to his 9th home run of the season, while Colin Ray said hip hip boo to giving up 6 runs over the course of 5 innings. From there, you did have a scoreless inning from Ryan Brazier and 2 scoreless innings out of Brooks Kriske. You had a lot of scoreless innings out there from the Atlanta Braves as well. 7-1. They're able to take it to the San Diego Padres. I know that our good friend Mid-Major Matt going to talk about this a little bit, as Michael King was supposed to be the starter for the Padres. Scratched about 45 minutes before first pitch. Sean Reynolds gives up 3 runs in 2 2/3 innings, including a home run, as he was taken deep by Matt Olson, 12th home run of the season. Then Ronald Acuna Jr., 2 games, 2 home runs. He goes deep off of Alec Jacob, 2nd home run season for Jacob. 4 runs surrendered in 1 2/3 innings. Wandy Peralta, 2 scoreless innings. Yuki Matsui, a scoreless inning of his own. And for the Atlanta Braves, really good start out of Grant Holmes. 1 run allowed over the course of 7 innings. Aniel De Los Santos along with Spencer Blewett. They both give you a scoreless inning as well. For the Milwaukee Brewers, they lose the Pittsburgh Pirates by kind of 2-1, and things a little bit less than savory for the Brewers over the last few games, as they are now 3 games below 500, and the Pirates continue to be a really good under team, by the way. How about 20 overs, 30 unders, and 3 pushes? That's the same for the Brewers, by the way. As for Quinn Pricer, 1 run allowed in 6 innings. Tyler Alexander gives up a run in 2/3 inning. Grant Anderson and out of the bullpen, and you had the, I believe, season debut of Aaron Ashby, scoreless inning from him. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, just a really good performance from Mitch Keller. Gives up 1 run in 6 innings. From there, Caleb Ferguson, Chase Yogurt combined for a scoreless inning. Dennis Santana and David Benhart, they're both able to end a scoreless inning as well. Royals have been an amazing under team. 18 overs, 34 unders, and a push, and they do go a little bit overwhelming, and they lose to the Minnesota Twins by a count of 5-4, as the Twins have been so dominant at home this season. For the Kansas City Royals, you have Michael Wacha go, Michael Waka 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 Waka. Dying Pac-Man voice, he gives up 4 runs in 5 innings, including a pair of bombs. Harrison Bader, his 5th home run season. Cody Columbus, his 4th, and for Anel Zerpa, along with John Schreiber, Lucas Ursich, they all end a scoreless inning. Daniel Lynch, he puts a man on base, and he allows the game-winning run as Steven Cruz gives up the inherited runner. Brooks Lee, an RBI single. He ends this one. As for Minnesota, not necessarily what they were looking for out of S.B. Matthews. 2 runs allowed over the course of 4 innings. Did punch out 9. Justin Topa gives up 2 runs in an inning, but from there, Oriel Calla, Brooks Stewart, Griffin Jacks, Yohan Duran, they all are able to turn a scoreless inning. For the St. Louis Cardinals, they turn another win with Matthew Liberatore pitching 6-5 to final. As for Liberatore, gives up 1 run over the course of 7 innings. That was a solo run. Going deep for Arizona, Randall Grichuk's 2nd home run of the campaign. From there, you did have 3 runs given up in a third of an inning by Kyle Leahy, followed by a run given up by Steven Matz in 2/3 of an inning, but Ryan Elsley squirrel inning to be able to get the job done. And for the Arizona Diamondbacks, this was a rough start for Merrill Kelly. 4 runs allowed over the course of 6 innings. Justin Martinez gives up 2 runs in his inning work, and Jalen Beeks, he was able to turn a scoreless inning as well. Nothing doing for the San Francisco Giants on Saturday, as they fall to the Washington Nationals by a count of 3-0. And for San Francisco, Kyle Harrison get his first start of the season, gives up a home run, 2 runs in total over the course of 4 innings. James Wood, his 13th home run season, while Jake Irvin, 8 scoreless innings. And then you had Mr. Orde Lopez turn a scoreless inning for San Francisco. Currently, they are number 1 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Pretty solid here. You had Tyler Rogers lend a scoreless inning, and Tristan Beck, he goes 3 innings of long relief, allows a run along the way. And then you had 2 out there from the Boston Red Sox and the Baltimore Orioles. In game number 1, it was the Orioles who fell by a count of 6-5. They, for some reason, pitched to Rafael Devers in the 10th inning as he gets an RBI single to walk it off. Zach Coughlin, pretty Eflin awful. 5 runs, 4 of which were earned, given up in his 5 innings, including a trio of bombs. Abraham Turo gets his 2nd home run of the season. Jaron Duran, his 4th home run of the season. Then Weiler Abreu, his 12th. From there, you did have Brian Baker, Keegan Aiken, Yennier Cano, Felix Bautista, all in a scoreless inning, and then Gregory Soto makes a mess of things. And for Baltimore, they had a very difficult time in terms of being able to get to the bullpen as well. Hunter Dobbins gives up 4 runs in 4 innings, but then Sean Newcomb gives up a run in an inning. Liam Hendricks, Justin Wilson, Justin Slayton, Aroldis Chapman, Greg Weissert, all able to end scoreless innings. And then we saw in game number 2 a little bit of a reversal. I'm currently doing this as they're wrapping this up because I have the show cashing out to do Saturdays on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, and as of right now, this is 2-0 in the bottom of the 9th inning as Lucas Giolito was actually really good for Boston. 7 scoreless innings. From there, you had Brandon Bernardino give up a run in 2/3 inning. Luis Guerrero, he gives up a run in 1 1/3 innings, and for Baltimore, they were able to get a dominant performance out of Trevor Rogers, which I was not expecting. He goes for 6 1/3 innings scoreless. Andrew Kittredge, a scoreless inning. Sir Anthony Dominguez, he was able to come in there from there and hold down the 4th. Also being able to hold down the 4th, the Tampa Bay Rays currently doing this in the bottom of the 8th inning with them up 3-1 on the Toronto Blue Jays as Jose Barrios gives up 3 runs over the course of his 6 innings of work, including home run. Going deep for the Rays, Junior Caminero, 9th home run season, and the Boz, Shane Boz, gives up a home run in 5 1/3 innings as Vlad Guerrero Jr. gets his 7th home run of the season. Toronto from here has had Mason Fluharty come in, lend a scoreless inning, and Paxton Schultz come in and hold down the 4th. Meanwhile, for the Tampa Bay Rays, they were able to get a scoreless 1 1/3 inning of Garrett Clevenger. Manuel Rodriguez, he was able to turn a scoreless inning of his own. Do not know how the Phillies versus Athletics and the Angels versus Marlins game turned out because of the time of recording. That said, right now you've got the Tigers currently leading 3-2 on the Cleveland Guardians. Later part of that game as well, Luis Ortiz gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 innings before Matthew Fessa comes in, lends a scoreless inning. And for Detroit, you did see Casey Mize come off the injured list in pretty solid fashion. 2 runs, one of which was earned, given up in 5 innings. Did allow a home run to Bo Naylor, his 7th home run season, and from there the bullpen has done their part, and right now the New York Mets doing their part of taking it to the LA Dodgers. That is currently in the bottom of the 7th with them up by a count of 4-2. David Peterson, great name, great start. He goes 7 innings. He gives up 2 runs. And Tony Gonsolin, 4 runs allowed over the course of 5 innings. And if you're taking a look at what we're all getting in Major League Baseball right now, over the last 7 days, it has been a very underwhelming stretch as right now the unders in Major League Baseball with a few games pending for Saturday, hitting in this stretch at about 57%, 52 unders to 39 overs. Meanwhile, favorites have just went completely dry. How about 45 and 46 on the money line for favorites, hitting at less than 50%. Season to date, favorites still hitting at 58.2%, 446 and 320, but we have seen a reversal there, and the unders just keep coming in. 392 unders to 347 overs. That's a 53% hit rate to the under. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's what we're all getting in terms of the trends. Coming up next, how about if we do talk with one of our good friends, Mid-Major Matt, a.k.a. Matt Josephs, right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
If you work in quality control at a candy factory, you know strict safety regulations come with the job. It's why you partner with Grainger. Grainger helps you find the high quality and compliant products your business needs to inspect, detect, and help correct issues. And the sweetest part is, everyone gets a product that's as safe to eat as it is delicious. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Matt Josephs, a.k.a. Mid-Major Man aboard, who does such an excellent job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. You see him on the prop market doing such a great job over there with Ariel Epstein, the prop queen. Additionally, he does some great work over at ESPN Radio in Richmond, and I know that his college football previews are really good every year. Typically does those over at Athlon Sports, so guy does a little bit of everything. You're able to follow him on Twitter/X at Mid-Major Matt. All together, Matt, always great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Thank you as always for having me.
Always good to have you aboard. And Matt, we are now through about 2 months out of the season, and we are coming up on Memorial Day, which I think now we're able to see what is for real and what is for fake. We very much know that the Colorado Rockies are one of the worst teams in all of baseball history. I don't think that there's debating that, but what are some of the other takeaways that you've got from this baseball first 50 or so games of the season?
Well, I mean, I think we can kind of say that the Atlanta Braves are back in the race. We've seen Ronald Acuna Jr. with several home runs so far this week after coming back from injury, and with Spencer Strider back. And of course, he didn't look great, but I mean, that's, kind of the thing that you're working back from being on the IL. I think the Atlanta Braves are a threat once again, and certainly they become that number one or number two team in that division because you have to be paying attention to the Juan Soto stuff. How happy is Juan Soto in New York, and how much is it affecting his play on the field and everything? And I've told people on this podcast several times before, like, get in on the Braves to win the division, get in on the Braves. You could still probably get a decent price on it, but I still think now you're getting a good price on the Braves because the Phillies are getting fat and happy against really bad teams in Major League Baseball, like a lot of teams will do so far this season.
Yep, absolutely. And it's really interesting to take a look at this Atlanta Braves team because the big thing for them has been really the injuries. And Ronald Acuna Jr., though they did not win the game on Friday, homering in his first at bat, it does feel like they're getting their full allotment of pieces. And what I think is even bigger than that, too, is the fact that Matt Olson is starting to look like that guy from a few years ago as well.
Yeah, and they're getting really good pitching. I mean, if you can put a healthy Spencer Strider up there with Spencer Schwellenbach and a Chris Sale and one of the Holmeses, you've got a really good 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. And, the Braves always seem to make some trades at the deadline, and maybe their biggest acquisition is the addition of Ronald Acuna to the lineup. But this is a team that has the pieces to certainly make a run. And, with the way the Dodgers look a little bit vulnerable when it comes to their pitching staff, and the Phillies get very hot and very cold. I feel like 1 year ago, the Phillies had the best record in baseball. And then you look and fast forward and, they struggled down the stretch. So I'm a really big fan of the Braves here and think you should be buying stock in Atlanta.
Yep, and I do think that it's going to be an interesting race out there in the East, as Matt Joe says, a.k.a. Mid-Major Matt, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And interesting enough, we've got ourselves a good match, in my opinion, on Sunday involving the Braves and the Padres, as Dylan Cease goes for the Padres. Spencer Schwellenbach is on the bump for Atlanta. And I'm not sure how you take a look at this matchup, but I feel like Dylan Cease has pitched a whole heck of a lot better than the raw ERA would indicate. And you mentioned it with Spencer Schwellenbach. He's not necessarily like a strikeout artist, but what I do like about Schwellenbach is that he doesn't put guys on cheaply, and he's able to go pretty deep into starts to be able to allow for those more trustworthy relievers to be able to take over for Atlanta.
Yeah, and these two already faced off. Schwellenbach threw a one-hitter through 6 innings in San Diego. The Braves lost the game 1-0. I don't think we'll get another 1-0 game now. Their lineup is a whole lot better, but you're right. Schwellenbach hasn't struck out as many guys as he did last year. You look at the last couple of starts, he had 3 against the Red Sox, he had 3 against the Nationals, he had 4 against the Dodgers. But the one thing you do notice is 7 innings, 6 innings, 3 2/3 against LA. That's understandable, but then 6 and 7 innings. This is a guy who's going to eat a lot of outs, and so I'm guessing you're going to get a 17.5 potentially here for his outs. I'd potentially look at the over. When you look at the Padres here, Chris Sale went 7 innings. Holmes went a bunch of innings on Saturday against this team. So it's funny. I'm actually looking right now, going back even further to about the 5th of this month. There have been a ton of pitchers who have gone at least 6 innings against this team. So I might want to look at the Schwellenbach's outs, especially if it's 17.5, 18.5. It's a little bit more difficult, but you might get plus money here. So Schwellenbach's the guy I kind of want to target in this situation.
Yep, and with the San Diego Padres, it's been really interesting to watch them. And their, shall we say, lack of power outside of Fernando Tatis Jr., there have been a few teams like that. Like the Kansas City Royals just have not been able to pump out the deep ball all season long. Your Philadelphia Phillies, you take Kyle Schwarber out of the fold, and the guys not named Kyle Schwarber have had a little bit of a tough time going yard as well. What have you made out of this? Because it feels like in terms of the MLB this season, the home run hitters, the dominant ones, have been really, really good, and nobody else is hitting home runs.
Yeah, it really does feel like that. I mean, Aaron Judge obviously is, doing what Aaron Judge does, and Kyle Schwarber in a contract year. We haven't even gotten to June yet, and that's when he has his best month. So who knows what's going to happen? Maybe it's the opposite. He has his worst month for June, with every other month this year being good. I don't know, but you're right. Home run hasn't been as big this season, but of course we've seen some injuries to some of the sluggers around Major League Baseball. So it's one of those things where you still kind of look at the recent history for these pitchers and these hitters against each other. There's certain guys that are going on Sunday who have really good histories against certain pitchers. Brandon Lau, who's 7 of 14 with 3 homers against Chris Bassett. And we know in that ballpark, especially if the wind's blowing out, you could certainly see some home runs in Tampa Bay. You also look at a guy like Paul Goldschmidt, who has 2 home runs in 21 at-bats against Antonio Senzatella, and of course, Coors Field. There certainly could be some home runs coming up on Sunday.
Yep, there certainly could be, as we've got a lot of, shall we say, less than tremendous pitchers. And one of the guys that you mentioned was Brandon Lau, as we've got ourselves the Blue Jays and the Tampa Bay Rays, with it being Ryan Pepiot and Chris Bassett. Rays are very slight favorites with a total of 9. How do you evaluate this one with a Rays team that honestly has not hit too well at home this far this season, but you know as well as I do, with that now being an outdoor stadium out there in Tampa, I think that the ball is going to start flying quite a bit more in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I do too. And this is a Rays team that you kind of want to fade against lefties. You kind of want to fade them against lefties, but obviously there's not a lefty on the mound here. And, Tampa Bay has had those issues where they take out pitchers randomly a little bit early to preserve their arms, but it feels like Ryan Pepiot is a guy who goes 6 innings consistently. He's gone 6 innings in the last 3 starts, including 6 innings against the Astros last time out. And then, of course, back in April, he went 6 innings in 3 of his 5 starts, went 6 innings in his opener against the Rockies back on March 28th. So he's a guy who's going to eat some innings. He just saw Toronto on the 14th, pitched all right, 7 strikeouts in 6 innings. That was on the road. We'll certainly want to pay attention to the weather before we take a look at this one, though. As we said, winds blowing out means there could be a lot of runs here and certainly a lot of home runs. But Pepiot usually is good for 6 innings, and that'll make his outs prop certainly worth a look here.
Yep, and it's going to be really interesting to see if he can get a little bit more swing and miss, as he's been down a little bit with that regard this season. And just in terms of some of the prop trends that you've noticed here in the first 2 months of the season, have there been any surprising ones? Because it feels like a lot of the consistent teams that don't strike out a ton, we've seen a little bit of reversal of that, like the Washington Nationals have been a great example. Meanwhile, there are some teams that have had much better plate discipline this year, like the Seattle Mariners.
Yeah, Seattle's actually an interesting team because they've had stretches of unders, they've had stretches of overs. I mean, if you look the last couple of times, 8 strikeouts in 4 1/3 innings against Lance McCullers, 6 strikeouts in 4 1/3 against Gusto this series, and then Valdez had a bunch of strikeouts. And so it's tough for me at times to trust Seattle. I'm still thinking about last year, but their numbers are better, especially against righties. 4.4 strikeouts per game against right-handed starting pitchers now, 6 strikeouts per game against left-handed starting pitchers, which actually is worse than they were last year. But you look at some of the guys they faced. Max Fried is going to have a bunch of strikeouts. Garrett Crochet is going to have a bunch of strikeouts. It was back in April. Newcomb had 8 strikeouts in 5 innings. That's a little bit of a concern. But here's the one that I think the books are still kind of struggling a little bit with. We are consistently getting higher numbers against the Chicago White Sox. And the White Sox have actually gone under, and hopefully this trend continues because I took the under on Jack Leiter. Before this game on Saturday, they had 23 unders and 13 overs, averaging just 4.7 strikeouts per game against right-handed starting pitchers. And that tells me the books are still inflating their numbers like they were last year when they averaged over 5 strikeouts per game. So for now, I'm kind of taking advantage of it here. As I noticed on my spreadsheet, I've taken a bunch of White Sox unders as of late because this is a team that, while it's not flush with talent, it's at least filled with guys who have lots of contact in the lineup.
And it's very interesting. You mentioned the White Sox. They're playing against the Texas Rangers and old Patrick Corbin on Sunday. And for Patrick Corbin, he's actually given up 3 runs or fewer, and I believe all but one of his starts thus far this season. And the Rangers are about minus 140 or so favorites. How do you take a look at this one? Because I've noticed that Patrick Corbin has pitched better, but really feels like he's due for some regression.
It's funny because it's one of those things where, it's funny. On Saturday, I was actually looking at a Cal Quantrill, good prop because Cal Quantrill has pitched pretty well. He had an immaculate inning. I mean, that's something I never would have thought I would have seen from Cal Quantrill. You look at what Patrick Corbin has done, he's still giving up some runs, but he's kind of getting around it a little bit. He had the 9 strikeouts against Colorado. Of course, that's not as impressive, but this is a White Sox team that has had some problems against lefties. Matt Boyd had 8 in the last game they faced lefties. Abbott had 7. Bubic had 7. Reagan's had 11. Framber Valdez had 6. Now, Corbin is not in the realm of any of those guys per se, but if the number is low enough, I might consider taking a look at a Patrick Corbin strikeout over here. Of course, we also have to pay attention to, the weather in this sort of situation because at times Chicago has had some issues with rain or wind or things like that. So that's something you certainly want to look at here. But Corbin might give them a solid 6 innings or so, 5 and change. So Patrick Corbin's no longer the automatic fade. He's no longer instantly taking the hits allowed over prop, much like Cal Quantrill, no longer the automatic hits allowed over prop. But this is, I guess, getting bit by that spider has really helped out for Corbin.
Yes, and I love how they called it at first a venomous creature, which I just love the word creature in general. But yeah, it's been really fun to be able to take a look at what we've been getting there. And for the Texas Rangers, man, can this team just generate any offense whatsoever? And how do you gauge some of those props against the Texas Rangers too? Because I find them to be one of the most maddening teams in all baseball. Recognize that they're not going to be some sort of a top 5 offense, but man, I really expected more out of that offense than what they've been able to deliver.
Well, this is a team that's gone over their strikeout prop in 11 of their last 13 games. This is a team that has seen a lot of strikeouts now. For the people who had the over, who had the under for Carlos Rodon a couple of days ago, he struck out the last two batters and went over his number after that. That was kind of a brutal loss. But like when you see Bryce Wilson go over his 3.5 and you see Sean Burke go over a 4.5 with 6 strikeouts, like this lineup is just not producing a lot. And when you look at some of the other stuff in terms of the runs allowed, not getting a lot of runs allowed here from this offense who's just not scoring a lot. They're actually averaging against starting pitchers 4.8 hits per game. 4.8 hits per game. Some teams, that's a really good inning. For the Rangers, they are just struggling to hit anybody. And look, I don't love Davis Martin by any stretch of the imagination, but he could go a solid 5-6 innings here potentially against this lineup that's just not getting a lot going.
Yeah, it's been a lot of just intrigue in general with the Texas Rangers because the pitching has actually been quite good for them. I didn't think it was going to be that great, but I mean, it's just a team that in general has not been able to get out of neutral with regards to the offense. And I do have to address this as well because you're one of the best men to talk about on this front. The Colorado Rockies had how big of a fade that they are. 9-43 this far this season. They are on pace for one of the worst records in all of baseball, but the ways to be able to fade the Colorado Rockies are starting to dry up. Their run lines are out of control. The money lines were out of control. Now they're really out of control. What ways can we find to be able to just bet against this Colorado Rockies team that doesn't involve like laying super heavy juice?
Well, so here's the funny thing. Like you're starting to see a lot of heavy numbers when it comes to their K-props. They're averaging 6.27 strikeouts per game overall, 6.05 against righties, 6.8 against lefties. But like I'm looking at the numbers here. Max Fried had a 6.5. Clark Schmidt had a 5.5. Ranger Suarez had a 5.5. Like you're not going to get a lot of low numbers against this team. So that's kind of dried up a little bit. You know, you look at what they've done in Coors Field, 14 K-prop overs, 12 K-prop unders. It's really tough to find it because everybody knows that they're a really bad team. You look at the outs over. They heavily juice the outs over because pretty much everyone goes 6 innings. You look at the hits allowed prop. Like those are kind of, you know, I actually see you can actually back this offense somewhat at home in terms of taking the hits allowed overs for the opposing pitchers because this team is actually hitting decently at home in terms of getting hits. They had 6 hits in almost every game against the Phillies, except for the Luzardo game where they had 2. Sanchez, they had 5, but they had 6 against Taijuan Walker and 6 against Ranger Suarez. So like the offense is showing a little bit of life against starting pitchers in Coors Field, but of course we're coming up on a series in Chicago, and that'll probably be a tough one as well for this team. But yeah, you're right. You know, in the day early on this season, we used to get like lower K-prop numbers and we took advantage of. But now, unless you're some bullpen arm who's not even going to last very long, you're getting a 4.5, 5.5, 6.5 hung against you because this Rockies team just doesn't make any contact.
Oh, it's been just so terrible with this team. And then they just commit so many errors out there in the field. They've got really not a lot of good pitching whatsoever. Now they have to put Chase Dollander on the injured list. It's just not great, to say the least, with the Colorado Rockies. But what is great is the slate that we've got for Sunday, Matt. Anything else that you're going to be taking a look at that you might be betting on?
Logan Henderson's been tremendous for Milwaukee,
Yes.
and I think going to Pittsburgh, I'm going to make sure that the weather's okay 100%, but like I think Henderson can certainly go over a decent-sized strikeout prop here. The Pirates have been a team that's been very free swing. Of course, we're also getting Sunday lineups potentially before a holiday, so you know that some teams might certainly rest some guys, especially if they have a home game on Monday. You're going to want to show your best lineup on a holiday situation, so Henderson's a guy I definitely want to attack here in this situation, maybe an outs over, because he's been, you know, pretty solid in terms of that stuff. So I'm certainly interested there. I'll be interested to see what the lineups look like in the Orioles Red Sox game coming up on Sunday because you've got 2 pitchers that you definitely want to, you know, fade a little bit here in Walker Buehler and Dean Kremer. But of course, you've had double headers and then you've had long rain delays and supposed double headers. This series has been really wacky and all over the place. So I want to check and make sure what the lineups look like before I do any sort of fading there. And then, of course, one of my favorite pitchers is Edward Cabrera going up against a very swinging Angels offense. The problem is going to be they're going to hang a 5.5 here, and if Cabrera's in one of those swings where he's just walking everybody, he's not going to go over that. I love the guy. I think he's got some of the best stuff in baseball. The problem is he never knows where it's actually going to go, and so I'll be very interested to see what Edward Cabrera's strikeout prop is, what his walk prop is. He's a guy I love to attack in certain situations, but I just there's times where he just doesn't know where that ball is going to go. And then, of course, Tarek Skubal for an 11:35 a.m. Eastern time start time. If the Guardians are not, if they're sleepy at all, Skubal could approach double-figure strikeouts in this sort of situation because early start time, a pitcher who's really good at home, a Cleveland Guardians team at times has had some issues against lefties. That could be a recipe for disaster for the Guardians, especially if they have a sleepy start.
Yep, no question about it. And Tariq Skubal has really gone out there and dominated. And for Cleveland. Just such a top-heavy lineup as well, and a man that does such an amazing job. Take a look at all this in baseball and so much more is you, Matt. You do an incredible job on so many different fronts, so let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, at Mid-Major Matt on Twitter. Willing to answer any questions anybody has on the props, first threes, first fives, anything like that, because I know you don't do as much with that, but everybody can see I'm very transparent. I post my picks on the Action Network and post the picture of it on my Twitter account, so everybody sees my record and everything every single day, so there's no questions about what's going on here, and I'm certainly willing to answer any questions. As you mentioned, we are less than 100 days from college football. The group of 5 win totals are out, so I'm really excited to start diving into those. And of course, college basketball with the transfer portal, always excited to talk about and look at the transfer portal in college basketball.
Absolutely. And the lone correction is you only get to see it when Twitter/X is not completely broken like it's been this weekend, which that is not on you. That is on the fine folks over there at the old Twitter/X. But Matt is doing his part. He does an excellent job taking a look at this great game of baseball. And every single time he joins me, lends such great insight. So a big thanks to Matt for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. Now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Coming next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Sunday as we touch them all.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to get Mid-Major Matt, a.k.a. Matt Josephs, aboard every single time he joins me. He lends such amazing insights. Did so once again today. So a big thanks to Matt for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Sunday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at gunit_81, and we are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So, without further ado, let's dive in. It is 9:51, 9:52 on the card. The San Francisco Giants hit the road. They're facing off against the Washington Nationals as Mike Soroka is on the bump for the Nats, and Robbie Ray says hip hip hooray to another start. And for the Giants, you're going to be getting them between minus 148 to minus 162, plus 134 to a plus 140 is the number on Washington, with 8.5 being the total. The under is minus 120, and the over is even. And I do not trust in Mike Soroka here. I set my money line on the Giants at a minus 147. So right now we're at that minus 147 mark. That'd be the absolute max that'd be willing to go. If you're looking at the run line, right now we're finding less than a plus 110. I would need a little bit more there, so we'll see how that matriculates. So right now, settling on a little bit of a chalkier money line, but that said, for the San Francisco Giants, they've been able to do a tremendous job with their bullpen, and Robbie Ray has actually been halfway decent thus far this season. Now, I don't know if Robbie Ray knows where the ball is going to go when Robbie Ray throws it, because he's still giving up 4.2 walks per 9 innings, but still has that strikeout stuff, 9.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, 267 ERA, 346 field independent, and has been on a nice run recently. How about 4 runs allowed over the course of his last 4 starts? And for Michael Soroka, it's been a little bit less than tremendous for him this far this season. A nice hearty 5.95 ERA, fielding independence more around about 4.14, as he's been getting 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He does give up the 1.8 home runs per 9 innings, and as the strikeout stuff has went up, the hard contact and the walks have went up, so not necessarily so tremendous there. You've got a Washington Nationals bullpen, by the way, that is posting up an ERA that is north of a 6. They've been a little bit better since Brad Lord went from being a starter going back into the bullpen, but man, you've got Jackson Rutledge, Cole Henry, along Kyle Finnegan. These guys have been able to give you a sub-4 ERA, and pretty much everyone else has north of a 5. Jose Ferrer, Lucas Sims, guys like this have been absolutely terrible. And for the Washington Nationals, you've got quite a few guys move line for you. CJ Abrams, Ahmed Rosario at the top of the lineup, both been able to hit north of a 280, and then James Wood, 13 home runs, 385 on base. He has been very rock solid, but then you've got the likes of a Dylan Cruz, along with Josh Bell, hitting below the Mendoza line of 200, Nathaniel Lowe's been able to give you some power, but doesn't necessarily do a great job of being able to get on base. They're looking at some of these young gun outfielders to be able to help them out, so we shall see there. And then for the San Francisco Giants, have just quite a few guys in general that do a nice job of being able to get on base, including Tyler Fitzgerald, who's now fresh off the injured list. He, Jung-Ho Lee, both hitting in that neighborhood about a 280. Mike Yastrzemski has been able to give you 365 on base, and then Eloy Ramos has been able to give you 9+ bombs, 355 on base. Matt Chapman, not necessarily great in terms of batting average, but 340 on base. Solid power as well. And for the Giants, this is the number one team in the big leagues in terms of bullpen area. You've got just so many guys firing all cylinders for this team, as you've had Camilo Duvall look like the Camilo Duvall of old. Ryan Walker's not necessarily a guy that I trust in too much, but I think that he's going to round into form. And then you've been able to have the likes of a Tyler Rogers, Eric Miller, guys like this supply a sub 350 ERA. Spencer Bivens is able to give you some nice long relief as well. So to think that for the San Francisco Giants, they do go out there, get the job done, I'm going to be willing to lay up to a minus 147 on that money line, and did set a little bit of a higher total at 9.1, so I'm also in on this total over. 953, 954 on the betting board. It is the Milwaukee Brewers on the road against the Pittsburgh Pirates, as Bailey Fulcher hopes to not live up to his name for Pittsburgh, and Logan Henderson is on the bump for the Brewers. Brewers are between minus 113 to minus 118 favorites, anywhere between minus 102 to a plus 104. That number on Pittsburgh 8 is the total. The over is minus 115, the under is minus 105. For the Brewers, I set them at a minus 148. I'm going to be willing to lay the money line with them. For Logan Henderson, he has been very good at his restarts. 3 total runs allowed, 16 plus innings, 23 punch-outs. I recognize that he's given up 2 home runs, but this guy has been absolutely tremendous. Was good for the AAA Sounds this season as well. And for Bailey Fulcher, he's down to a 350 ERA, but still getting about 6.5 strikeouts, 3 walks per 9 innings. He has done a solid job of being able to keep the ball in the yard, but I just don't know how long-lasting this is going to be. He has had a nice little bit of a run here recently, but now faces off against a Milwaukee Brewers team that has been solid on the road in terms of generating offense. They've been a top 10 team with regards to runs per game away from home. Now, you've got the likes of Vinny Capra, Caleb Duran, Joey Ortiz at the bottom of the lineup. These middle infielders have not really been able to hit for the team. They're all hitting below the middle line of 200. Sal Frelick has been able to give you about a 350 on base. William Contreras is up to about a 365 on base as well. Big thing is Christian Yelich is starting to give you a bit more power, 9 plus home runs. Though he's hitting at the middle line of 200, you've been able to have Jackson Chourio give you 7 home runs as well, but he's got a 274 on base, so been a little bit hit or miss there. And Bryce Harper does a nice job moving line, stealing some bags for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Not a lot of offense as they went 26 straight games scoring 4 runs or fewer. They've been able to bust out of that, but I mean, still, you've got these guys like Jared Trollo, Brian Reynolds, Henry Davis, hitting at 215 or lower. Oneil Cruz is give you some good power, 8 home runs, about a 350 on base, and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa's move the line for you, but man, it's not necessarily been great on that front end for both of these bullpens. It's been a little bit shaky as Jarrett Koenig has been okay for the Brewers, but Yopai himself, Figueroa, these guys have been awful after they were so good last season. Trevor McGill is able to close it out, and I like Ebner Uribe as well, but certainly we've seen a little bit of a reversal of fortune there. Meanwhile, with the Pittsburgh Pirates, you've been able to get some good innings out of some of these guys like a Chase Shogurt. You've still got David Bennar pooping the Bennar. He's been giving you north of 5 ERA, and Colin Olderman's now on the injured list, but Dan Santana has been relatively solid as well, but I think that Bailey Fulcher, doing for quite a bit of regression, really doesn't get those swings and misses, and Brewers hit him hard. I set my total at 8.1. I like the over, and I do like the Brewers. On the money line, 955, 956 on the card. It is the Chicago Cubs on the road against the Cincinnati Reds, and yes, we are on to Cincinnati. They're on to Nick Lodolo getting the start for them, and Ben Brown goes for the Cubs. Cubs do find themselves between minus 108 to minus 118 favorites, and between even money to minus 105 is the number on Cincinnati. 9 is the total. The over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. I do like the over here. I did set my total at 9.6. The Chicago Cubs have just been absolutely pounding the tar out of the ball this far this season, as they're numero uno in runs per game with 6. When they've been away from home, this goes up to about 6.1 runs per game, and just have so many guys that are able to fire on all cylinders. We're seeing Pete Crow Armstrong, 13 plus home runs this season. You've gotten really good production out of Seiya Suzuki, who's been able to give you a double-figure amount of bombs. Dansby Swanson is up to now give you 10 plus homers as well. So these guys are all coming to the forefront. You've been able to have quite a few guys like Nico Horner and company get online and get on base to be able to turn those solo home runs into 2-run shots and 3-run shots as well. Ian Happ has been able to give you about a 350 on base. Just doesn't compare to what you're able to get out of the Cincinnati Reds. As for the Reds, you've been able to have a pair of guys in TJ Friedel along with Gavin Lux, both at least a 270, and Lux up to about a 385 on base. Ellie De La Cruz, he's up to 9 home runs. He's been able to find it a little bit more, but does strike out a little bit more than what you'd like. And then you've been able to get some power out of Matt McClain, but he's hitting below the middle line of 200. Spencer Sear has been pretty miserable this year. Will Benson has been able to give you a 405 on base, but I do think that in this pitching matchup, even though Ben Brown does have that high ERA, he's got north of 5 ERA, that he's going to be able to have a little bit of success here because he has been doing a nice job getting about 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, albeit it has come with north of 3 walks per 9 innings, has been giving up a little bit of hard contact, but I do think that he's doing for some positivity numbers. Meanwhile, you've got Nick Lodolo, who's been seeing a massive dip with his strikeouts, 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but only 1.5 walks per 9 innings. He's allowing less than a home run per 9. If you do have trepidation here with the Chicago Cubs, it's probably because his bullpen a little bit less than savory, to say the least, as far this season, as you've had Caleb Theobar actually be one of your main guys. Ryan Presley is a guy that I have absolutely no faith in whatsoever. Daniel Palencia, Drew Pomeranz, these guys are giving you a sub-3 ERA. Chris Flexen, in a small sample size, has not been awful in the bullpen, but I don't know how long that's going to last. And for the Cincinnati Reds, this is an above-average bullpen in terms of ERA. They got absolutely lit up in the game on Friday, but so the likes of a Tony Santillan, Taylor Rogers give you a sub-3.5 ERA along with the long guy and Graham Ashcraft. I still have absolutely no faith whatsoever in Abilio Pagan. That guy poops the bed at the worst time. But that said, I do think that this is going to be a relatively solid start for Ben Brown. I think that Nick Lodolo sees some regression with his down strikeout numbers. Somebody told 9.6. I like the over. And for the Cubs, set them at a minus 128. I'm willing to take them on the money line. 957, 958 on the betting board. The Arizona Diamondbacks sit there at the face off against the St. Louis Cardinals. Sonny Gray is on the bump for the Cards, and Brandon Pfaadt looks a battle for Arizona, and Arizona is a underdog of plus 105 to plus 110, minus 117 to minus 125. That number on St. Louis, 7.5 is the total. Over is minus 115, unders minus 105, and with the Cards, I did set them at a minus 127. I'm going to be willing to lay the money line for Sonny Gray. Ever since he's gotten to St. Louis, he's got an ERA that's more than a full point lower at home rather than on the road, though. Been a little bit of a rough year for him. Still getting right around 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but experiencing a 4 ERA, fielding dependent. He's right on par with that. Is 1.4 home runs per 9 innings, right there for a career high. And for Brandon Pfaadt, this has been someone who's been really giving it up recently. 3 runs or more allowed in 4 out of his last 5 starts, albeit one of those runs against the Atlanta Braves was unearned, but he's given up 1.7 home runs per 9 innings, fielding independent of a 5 with a 3.81 ERA. He's only getting some punch-outs per 9 innings. Now, he is backed up by a Diamondbacks team that's in the top 5 in terms of runs per game. I recognize that Lourdes Gurriel hasn't necessarily been able to give you too much, and now you're getting back Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte, which I love that. He's been able to give you about a 390 or so on base. Geraldo Perdomo is giving you about a 400 on base. Josh Naylor does a nice job, be able to hit for about a 290. Power numbers haven't been the world's greatest this year. That's why you've got Corbin Carroll and Eugenio Suarez, who both been able to give you 14 plus home runs this season. And you've got Randall Grichuk starting to fire on all cylinders as well. He's a nice platoon player for this unit. On the flip side, have a St. Louis Cardinals team that they don't have a lot of power, but getting back Ivan Herrera, who had like 4 home runs in his first 60 or so at bats. He's right now hitting for darn near a 470 on base. That's pretty massive. You on top of that have had Lars Nootbaar be able to give you 7 bombs. He's providing about a 355 on base. Mason Wynn does a nice job moving the line. You've had Victor Scott give you 350 on base. Jordan Walker has been not good for this team, to say the least, but what else has been not good is the Arizona Diamondbacks, a bottom 10 team with regards to their bullpen ERA. You've got a pair of guys that have been pretty solid in the bullpen. Jalen Beek, Shelby Miller, been able to give you some 3.5 ERA, but they've been trotting out their Juan Barrio, who's not good, to say the least. Kevin Ginkel's posting up north of a 6 ERA. Kendall Graveman, they're just getting back off the injured list along Justin Martinez, so we'll see how those guys are able to pan out. And then for the St. Louis Cardinals, it's been very impressive what we've seen out of Ryan Helsley over the last few seasons. We've had Kyle Leahy supply about a 1 ERA, and Phil Matone has been pretty rock solid in that bullpen as well. So to think that the Cardinals go out there, get the job done, I do think that both of these starters give up a few runs here, so I might tell it at 8.3. I like the over, and with the Cardinals, we'll go up to a minus 127 on that money line. 959, 960 on the betting board. The Atlanta Braves play OC Salem Diego Padres. You've got Spencer Schwellenbach on the bump for the Braves, and Dylan Cease is on the bump for the Padres. Padres are anywhere between plus 120 to plus 125 dogs, anywhere between minus 133 to minus 142. That number on Atlanta, 8.5 to 8 is the total. On the 8th, the over is minus 115, under is minus 105. On the 8.5, under is minus 125, over is plus 105, and for the Padres, I did set them in this ordeal at a plus 131. Right now, I'm seeing about minus 133 or so we'll need to see what we get in terms of run line prices, as right now, as I'm recording this, the low ones that are up are over at FanDuel. Right now, if you're looking to lay a run half with the Atlanta Braves, you're able to get that right around about a plus 146. I would need more like a plus 156, but I think that when we get dime lines, I could probably get a minus 130 on the Braves, so that's where I'm going to be looking at for Schwellenbach. It's been an up and down sort of season for him. First few starts were absolutely amazing. Then you get gets a little bit torched. Now he's starting to work his way back. As for Schwellenbach, an okay swing and miss player, not necessarily amazing. He's going to give you in that neighborhood about like 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He does a good job with regards to command, less than 2 walks per 9 innings, 3.52 ERA, 3.65 fielding independent. Meanwhile, for Cease, he's been one of the best strikeout artists in all baseball, but sometimes gets a little bit wild with it and sometimes finds his own too much. 4.50 ERA, 3.50 fielding independent with 10.5 strikeouts at 3.2 walks per 9 innings. After a brutal start to the season, he's starting to round into form. 3 runs or fewer allowed in each of his last 5 starts, and for the Padres, they do back him with a top 8 bullpen in all of baseball. You've been able to get a lot out of Audio Motohone as a little bit of a long guy. Additionally, I like what you're getting out of Yuki Matsui, Jeremiah Estrada, Jason Adam. These guys being able to give you a sub 3.5 ERA with Robert Suarez, still having some nasty stuff at the closer spot for the Padres. What has really been hurting them, though, is the fact that they don't have a lot of power outside of Fernando Tatis Jr. Tatis Jr., 12 bombs, 359 on base. And then you've got Gavin Sheets supplying 9 home runs. Nobody else on the roster has north of 4 home runs. And this is a roster that has Manny Machado on there. And Machado's been hitting well. He's been able to give you about a 375 on base, but 4 bombs in 49 games. That's not what I was expecting. Luis Arias has been able to hit right around about a 300. You've got not too much out of some of the ancillary guys like Jose Iglesias, Jason Hayward. These guys have not been working out, but that said, getting Jackson Merrill back off the injured list, that's pretty rock solid. And for the Atlanta Braves, this has been a dramatically better team at home rather than on the road with regards to their bats. You've got Matt Olson, who's now up to 11 home runs, not quite back to being the Matt Olson that hit 50 bombs, but you know what? He's getting there. You've got Austin Riley, who's been stuck on 8 home runs for quite a while, but 330 on base. He's moving line. Marcell Ozuna, 9 bombs, north of 400 on base. You've now got Ronald Acuna Jr. back in the fold as well. That is just absolutely massive for this team. And you take a look at the Atlanta Braves, they've been taking as a collective of like a 262 at home thus far this season. So these guys are doing a nice job finding way on base. And for the Braves, it's not an amazing bullpen. It's not a bad bullpen. It's right around about league average. You've been able to get some relatively good production out of the likes of Pierce Johnson, Dylan Lee, and Desbel Hernandez. These 3 guys are all supplying a sub 275 ERA. Aaron Bummer hasn't been awful, hasn't necessarily been great, and I will say it's been a pretty disappointing season for Osiel Iglesias. He's got good stuff, but man, this has not necessarily been amazing to say the least, but do think that in the end the Braves do find a way to be able to get the job done. I'd be willing to lay up to a minus 130 on that Braves money line, and with regards to this total, I did some mine at a 8.2, so at the 8.5, I'm going to be in on the under. 961, 962 on the betting board. The LA Dodgers are on the road against the New York Mets. Kodai Senga is on the bump for the Mets. Landon Knack is on the bump for the Dodgers. Dodgers are between plus 114 to plus 120 underdogs, anywhere between minus 128 to minus 135. That number on the Metropolitans. 8.5 is the total. Over is minus 120, and the under is even. And for the Mets, I set them at a minus 133. I'm going to be willing to lay the money line for Kodai Senga. He does have his walks issues ever since he came over from Japan. He's been giving up darn near 4 walks per 9 innings, but he does a really good job of being able to mitigate hard contact. He's right now got a $1.43 ERA. That's going to be going northward a little bit. Fielding independent, more around about a 284. But how about 1 home run allowed in 50 in a third innings? He's getting only about 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, so he's down a little bit there. And then for Landon Knack, it's been up, down, all around for him. Right now he's got a north of 6 ERA, so that's very much less than tremendous. He's been just supplying a little bit too much of the deep ball. He's able to give you 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 4 walks per 9, nearly 2 home runs per 9 innings as well, so has been getting tattooed there. 4+ runs allowed in 3 out of his last 5 starts, and for the Dodgers, it's not like they're backing him with some sort of amazing bullpen. That's not because they didn't try in the offseason. They signed Kirby Yates, they have Michael Kopech from a season ago, Broussard Gradwell, guys like this, but the problem is they're all on the injured list right now, so that means that you're getting Jack Dreyer along with Ben Casparis. So a little bit less than tremendous. Tanner Scott has been a relatively good closer for the team, but Anthony Banda has seen a little bit of regression from a season ago. Now, when it comes to the lineup, Shohei Ohtani is just amazing. 17 home runs, nearly a 400 on base. He's doing his part. Teoscar Hernandez, he's back off the injured list. He, Freddie Freeman, Andy Pages, Mookie Betts, all between 8 and 10 home runs. Tommy Edman was on the injured list. 8 home runs at about 130 at-bats out of him as well. And then when it comes to Pages, he's been able to give you about a 315 on base, and Freddie Freeman, a 430 on base. Just absolutely remarkable. That said, Max Muncy, Michael Conforto, not necessarily giving you a ton for the New York Mets. I know that a lot of people like to play to Blaze Juan Soto, but he still had an okay season. I'm not going to say that he's up to the $700 million standard or anything like that, but a 369 on base with 8 bombs. I mean, it's not terrible. And then you've got Francisco Lindor's give you 350 on base, 10 home runs. Pete Alonso, nearly a 400 on base. He's been able to supply 9 home runs. Brett Beatty is starting to give you a little bit of power as well. Got a few guys who are able to move the line like Angel Acuna and Luis Torrens as well. And for the Mets, this has been a top 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA. Jose Buto has been a really good long guy for the team, supplying a sub-3 ERA. Max Kranick has been able to give you some relatively solid innings as well, but you've now got Edwin Diaz rounding into form. He's been able to give you a sub-275 ERA. Oscar Zobin along with Reed Garrett both are at a sub-150 ERA as well. So circumstance where I do think that for the Mets, they do find a way to be able to get the job done here. I'm willing to lay up to a minus 133 on that money line, and I do like this total under as well. I did set mine at a 8.2, 913, 914 on the betting board. The Cleveland Guardians are on the road facing off against the Detroit Tigers. Drake Skubal is on the bump for the Tigers, and Logan Allen goes for Cleveland. Cleveland is a underdog of anywhere between plus 180 and plus 188. Meanwhile, between minus 205 to minus 218, that number on Detroit, 7.5 is the total. Under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105. And for Cleveland, I did set them as a underdog of plus 214. If you're looking to lay a run half with the Detroit Tigers, I'd be willing to go up to a minus 109. And right now on those initial run lines, I'm seeing right around about a minus 102, and I'd be willing to lay that minus 102 for Logan Allen. He's been a whole heck of a lot better than he was a season ago, where he was just giving up a lot of hard contact and was just really not effective to say the least. But I still have a little bit of fear that we're going to see regression with his strikeout numbers down. He's only getting about 6.9 strikeouts and 4.3 walks per 9 innings. Last year was giving up 2 home runs per 9 innings. Much better here. He has given up 3 home runs over the course of 44 and a third innings, but still can't help but think that the air is going to be going out of the balloon sooner rather than later. And for Tariq Skubal, he's been one of the best pitchers in all baseball once again this season, a sub-3 ERA. He just continues to be rock solid in the way that he's able to get punch-outs, all while not giving up any walks. How about a strikeout to walk ratio of 11.3? 11.9 strikeouts, 1.1 walks per 9 innings. And if you take out those first 2 starts of the season, he's been supplying darn near sub-225 ERA in this time span as well. So he's been getting better as the season goes along. For the Cleveland Guardians, this is just an incredibly top-heavy lineup as well, because you've had Stephen Kwan at 300 or greater at the top of the fold. You've got Kyle Manzardo who's been able to give you 10 home runs, albeit he's hitting for like a 215, but he's able to give you home runs. Jose Ramirez, he's doing a good job, give you about a 365 on base, 9 home runs. But that said, when it comes to the bottom lineup, these guys like Brian Rocchio, Austin Hedges, Lane Thomas, John Kenzie Noel, Bo Naylor, all hitting below a 200. That's a big giant issue for the team. And for the Detroit Tigers, this has been a lineup that has really been able to come into their own, as you've got quite a few guys, 3 in total, that have been able to give you a double-figure amount of bombs. Spencer Torkelson, who gives you a 353 on base, Riley Green, who's hitting a 280, and then Gary Carpenter is also hitting a 280. Javi Baez is starting to regress a little bit, but still hitting a 290 after last year. It's about as useful as a poopy flavored lollipop. Could use a little bit more on something like Justin Henry, Malloy, Cole Keith, but Dylan Dingler has been able to turn near 300. And this is a Detroit Tigers bullpen that, since the All-Star break in 2024, number 1 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. These guys are so good at mixing and matching. Brian Herder has been utilized as a really good long guy. He, Brendan Hennefy, Tommy Canley, Chase Lee, Will Vest, all these guys are able to give you a sub-230 ERA. And for the Cleveland Guardians, the team has been average to below average with regards to their bullpen. Emmanuel Clase has looked a little bit better recently, but he's still off to a relatively rough start to the season. Additionally, you've been having quite a few of these guys regress from a season ago. They're relying upon the likes of Jacob Junis and Joey Cantillo, who have north of 4 ERAs. Hunter Gaddis has been amazing, somewhat ERA, and then been able to get some relatively good innings as well out of Cade Smith. But overall, it's been a bullpen that has seen a little bit of a departure from where they were a season ago. I think that Skubal goes out there, gets the job done. I did set my total 7.6. I do think that Detroit gets Logan Allen, so I like the over and the run line of Detroit. 965, 966 on the betting board. The Boston Red Sox playoffs to the Baltimore Orioles. Dean Kramer is on the bump for Baltimore, and Walker Buehler is on the bump for Boston. Boston is a minus 125 to a minus 137 favorite, and between plus 113 to plus 117. That number on Baltimore, 9.5 is the total. Over and under both at minus 110, and with Baltimore, set them at a plus 171. I am really not understanding why we've got such a cheap money line here. Like, this Baltimore Orioles team has been terrible. They're winning about a third of their games this far this season. Dean Kramer is a 550 ERA. He's giving them north of a home run and a half per 9 innings. He doesn't get strikeouts. He doesn't perform well on the road. Like, what are we doing here? And for Walker Buehler, I recognize he was on the injured list, but he came back. First start looked relatively solid. If you look at his last 5 starts, he's made 7 thus far this season. 3 earned runs or fewer in each out of his last 5. 4 ERA, about a 4 fielding dependent. I mean, it leaves a little bit of something to be desired, but at the very least, his bullpen is at, 27th in the big leagues in terms of ERA. Felix Bautista has been relatively relatively solid along with Brian Baker, but you take a look at some of these guys like Aceto, Perez, and company, and they just have not been able to give you anything whatsoever. Sir Anthony Dominguez, Gregory Soto, the cast-offs of the Phillies have been less than tremendous, and for the Boston Red Sox, to have a pair of guys in Aroldis Chapman, Brandon Bernardino, giving you a sub-2 ERA. Craig Weisert has been pretty solid in the bullpen. Liam Hendricks, great story. He's been a little bit rough for the team, and you've been able to have Garrett Whitlock become a relatively good long guy for the team as well, but for Boston, they should be able to hit much better than Baltimore here as well. Rafael Devers, Alex Bregman, along with Weiler Abreu, have all been able to give you between 11 and 12 home runs apiece. Now, with Alex Bregman currently out due to injury, that's really not great, to say the least, but you still have Jaron Duran, who's starting to move the line a little bit more. I know that they've called up a few young guns to be able to help out with his lineup as well, and you need to get more out of Trevor Story. Right now, he's been hitting for about a 267 on base with not necessarily a ton of power, so less than savory there, but Carlos Narvaez is starting to come into his own. And for the Orioles, this team is averaging less than 4 runs per game away from home this season. That has been one of the worst marks in all baseball. Starting to get a little bit better with Gunnar Henderson being able to move the line along with Jackson Holiday. These two guys have been able to hit north of a 250, and you've been able to have Ryan O'Hearn do a tremendous job moving the line. About 7 home runs, about a 410 on base. Cedric Mullins is up to 10 bombs, but after a nice start to the season, he really has not been able to find a way to be able to get on base. And then you've got some of these other guys like Keston Kierstead, Adley Rushman and company in a 225 or lower. So circumstance where I do think that for the Boston Red Sox, they find a way to be able to get the job done here. I did set this total at a 9.2, so along with that Boston Red Sox money line, I'm going to be taking a look at this 9.5 under. 967, 968 on the betting board. The Tampa Bay Rays play the Toronto Blue Jays. Chris Bassett as the hook, line, and sinker for the Jays. Ryan Pepiot is on the bump for the Rays. The Rays are anywhere between minus 115 to minus 122 favorite. Between plus 102 to plus 109, that number on Toronto, and 9 is the total. The over and the under, anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115, and with the Blue Jays, I set them at a minus 104. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on them. Chris Bassett is starting to have a career year for this team. He's been able to supply the team with a sub-3 ERA. He's getting 9.5 strikeouts, so 1.7 walks per 9 innings. He has been really good this season. And for Ryan Pepiot, 3.99 ERA, fielding dependent more on about a 4.73 as he's given up the deep ball, 1.6 home runs per 9 innings. He's down to less than 8 strikeouts per 9 innings after being a little bit of a better power pitcher a season ago. And for the Toronto Blue Jays team, well, not necessarily a lot of power here. They're in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat and a per-game basis, as Dalton Varsho missed like 25 plus games for the team this season. He right now leads the team with 7 home runs in his first 18 games, so that's been interesting to say the least. You've got Vlad Guerrero Jr. along with Anthony Santander, both give you 6 home runs apiece, but Santander hitting below the middle sign 200, and I think these guys are still moving the line. Vlad Guerrero Jr. is giving you a 380 on base. George Springer, 375 on base. You've got Alejandro Kirk, don't call his name, he and Bo Bichette have been able to about 280, so you've been able to get a little bit of something there. And then on the flip side for the Tampa Bay Rays, this is really not an offense that's giving you too much. Like Junior Caminero has been able to give you 8 or 9 home runs. Brandon Lau is up to 9 home runs, but both of these guys are hitting below a 240, and both of these guys a sub 285 on base. Jonathan Aranda about 390 on base, so he's been solid. And Yandy Diaz is starting to give you 7 home runs, hitting a little bit better, but Taylor Walls continues to hit below the middle sign of Turner. Curtis Mead has hit a pair of home runs over the last week, but he's really not giving you too much as well. The fact that you've got someone like a Jake Magnum on the injured list, that's been an issue, but this is an Rays team that does find themselves in the top 10 in terms of bullpen ERA. You've had a lot of guys be able to mix and match for the team. Manuel Rodriguez, Garrett Clevenger, Pete Fairbanks, Eric Gorze, Hunter Biggie, all be able to give you a sub 2.5 ERA, so they should be able to do a nice job there. And for the Toronto Blue Jays, been a little bit up down all around with regards to this bullpen. They're about league average in terms of ERA. You've had Jeff Hoffman really start to poop the bed for the team, but after a little bit of a rough, shall we say, month or so, you have Yimi Garcia starting to run back into form. He and Chad Green have been able to give you a sub 3.25 ERA. Mason Fluharty has been a really nice surprise in this bullpen. He and Brandon Little have been able to give you a sub 2.30 ERA, so circumstance where I do think that for the Blue Jays, they do find a way to persevere, get the job done. I set them at a minus 104 on the money line, so going to be able to lay that. Me and my total at 8.7, so also like the under. 969, 970 on the betting board. The Chicago White Sox play us the Walker, Texas Rangers. Patrick Corbin is on the bump for the Rangers, and Davis Martin goes for the White Sox. White Sox are anywhere between plus 125 to plus 120 dogs, and you're going to be getting between minus 135 to minus 142 on Texas. 8.5 is the total. Under is minus 120, the over is even, and on the 8, over is minus 120, under is even. And for the Texas Rangers, I'm going to be willing to dive in on them. For Texas, I set them at a minus 149 on the money line. If you're taking a look to lay a run half with the Rangers, you're going to be getting a plus 118, and I'd be willing to take a shot on there. I would be willing to take anything of a plus 114 or higher. I recognize that Patrick Corbin is doing for a little bit of regression, but this is also a Chicago White Sox team that had drawn out their Bryce Wilson yesterday, and that turned into a little bit of a bullpen expose for them. For Patrick Corbin, he's given up 3 earned earned runs or fewer in pretty much all but one of his starts. It's been a remarkable 3.59 ERA, 4.83 fielding independence, giving up a home run half per 9 innings, swing and miss stuff, still not necessarily so great. So I do think that there's going to be a little bit of regression, but in order for there to be regression, you need some sort of a halfway decent offense, and the Chicago White Sox just unfortunately are not that. They are a bottom 5 team in the big leagues in terms of runs per game, and they just don't have a lot of power along this lineup, as Miguel Vargas and his 6 home runs is right now leading the way. You've had Andrew Vaughn along with Luis Robert, both below the Mendoza 200, and for Andrew Vaughn at 218 on base. Just absolutely deplorable there. Brooks Baldwin has been able to give you a little bit of something, but he's hitting about a 215. Chase Meredith has actually been hitting a 300, so yay, barely there, but Andrew Benintendi being on the injured list has been hurting this team. Jacob Amaya, when he's gotten at bats, he's hitting below 100 at this point, so you've had a lot of Buster Rooney there, and it's not even like this is some sort of amazing Chicago White Sox bullpen as well. Steven Wilson is to give you a sub 2 ERA. Mike Vasilla is a long guy, give you a sub 3 ERA, but you got a lot of guys like Cam Iser, Cam Bouger, guys like this. They're posting up north of a 5 ERA. Jordan Leisure has been able to give you about a 3.50 ERA as well. But for the Texas Rangers, I do think that they've got a little bit of a leg up in this bullpen. Not to say that they're the Mona Lisa Vitos of pitching or anything like that, but you know what? You're able to get some relatively good innings out of a guy like a Robert Garcia, who's been able to give you a sub 2.25 ERA. Hobie Milner, Jacob Latz, these guys have been relatively okay. Latz up to a north of 4 ERA. Milner more around about at 250, but for the Texas Rangers, I do think that this lineup starts to bust out a little bit more sooner rather than later. You've got the Josh Young along with Josh Smith, who both been able to hit north of a 275. Corey Seager being on the injured list has hurt the team, but White Langford 330 on base, about 9 home runs. You've been able to have Adolis Garcia give you a big giant nothing burger as he, Marcus Semien, Jake Berger, only get 225 or lower on Berger. I know he's currently out of the lineup as well, so that's a little bit less than savory, but that's it for the Texas Rangers. I do think that they get to Davis Martin here, who's not the world's worst pitcher, but certainly does leave a little bit of something to be desired. He's not going to be some sort of power pitcher or anything like that. For Davis Martin right now, supplying about a 3.49 ERA. That fielding dependent, though, more around about a 4, 5.5 strikeouts and 2 walks per 9 innings, and I do think that for this Texas Rangers team, they do just enough to be able to get the job done here. I did set my total at an 8.7, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on their run line, and I'm going to be looking at the over. 971, 972 on the betting board. The Kansas City Royals at the road, they're facing off against the Minnesota Twins. Bailey Ober is on the bump for the Twins. Chris with a K, Bubich is on the bump for the Royals, and the Royals do find themselves as in between even money to plus 106 underdogs, minus 115 to minus 122 is that number on the Twins, and 7.5 is the total. Under is minus 120, and the over is even. And with regards to this one, I set the Royals at a plus 111. I'd be willing to go up to a minus 111 with regards to that Twins money line. When we get the dime lines, I think that there's a chance that we actually get a plus 110 or so with the Royals. If we could get there, I'd be taking a look at that. As for Chris with the K, Bubich, he's been actually really, really good this year. And for Bailey Ober, he's just a little bit all over the place in general. In terms of Ober, when he has his good starts, he's really good. And when he has his bad starts, he's really, really bad. So there's that aspect of things for Ober. He's now given up 1 earned run in 4 out of his last 5 starts, 7.5 strikeouts and 2 walks per 9 innings, 3.68 ERA, right around about a 3.74, feeling independent. But how about this from Chris with the K, Bubich, being able to give you a sub 150 ERA. Now we should see that go northward a little bit, fielding independent, more around about a 270, but 9.5 strikeouts, so about 2.5 walks per 9 innings. Has just been really steady, giving up 1 total run in his last 4 starts. Now you've got a pair of bullpens that have been very good. It's including the Minnesota Twins. They're a top 5 team in terms of bullpen ERA. Danny Kaluma has yet to allow an earned run thus far this season. Yohan Duran has got some of the best closer stuff in all of baseball. Griffin Jacks has not been good for the team, but aside from Griffin Jacks, pretty much everyone's been rock solid. And for the Minnesota Twins, of course, shock, surprise, surprise, Byron Buxton's back on the injured list, so that's not great. But you've got Ty France, who's been able to hit about a 255 for this unit. You've got Ryan Jeffers, Harrison Bader moving the line, both give you about a 360 in terms of that on base. Could use a little bit more of something like an Edouard Julien and Deshaun Kiersey, both hitting below those I am 200, but you've been able to get some production there. And then on the flip side, you've got a bunch that has been, shall we say, up, down, all around with regards to their offense, as Vinny Pasquantino has been able to now give this Kansas City Royals team 8 home runs. And you've got a few guys moving the line. Miguel Garcia, Bobby Witt Jr., both hitting at 300, but both at 5 home runs apiece. You just expect more than 32 home runs in 52 games out of these guys. And Salvador Perez having a miserable year, 266 on base with 3 home runs as far this season. Drew Waters, Kyle Isbell have both been able to give you a little bit of on base, but that said, when it's all said and done, I do think that if you can get north of a plus 110 with the Royals, they'll be looking there, or if you get down to a minus 110, we'll be looking at the Twins, so a little bit of wait and see there. But with regards to this total, I think that both of these pitchers dominate. Set my total at 7.2, so You're at the 7.5. I'm also going to be willing to dive in on the under as well. 973, 974 on the betting board. You've got the Seattle Mariners on the road against the Houston Astros as Luis Castillo is on the bump for Seattle. And we've got Mr. Old Gordon as Colton Gordon is going to be on the bump for Houston. And Houston does find themselves as underdogs of plus 113 to a plus 105. Meanwhile, you're between minus 123 to minus 125. Then around Seattle, 8 is the total. Over is minus 115. Under is minus 105. Did sell my total at 8.7. I'm going to be looking at the over. For Luis Castillo, he just hasn't been himself in terms of getting the strikeouts this season. Now, he's been a little bit more crafty in the way that he's been able to locate, and he's been able to do a nice job of avoiding the deep ball. He's given up just 0.6 home runs per 9 innings, but down to 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. That is by far a career low. 3.20 ERA with a 3.56 fielding independent. It's really running in good form, though. 0-1 runs allowed in 4 out of his last 5 starts, so a lot of credit there. And for Colton Gordon, this is a little bit of a young gun that is going to be receiving, I believe, start number 3 for the Houston Astros in his first 2 starts. A little bit shaky. He's getting 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but gave up a pair of bombs in those first few starts. And if you take a look at what he did for the Sugar Land Space Cowboys this season, 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, and the PCL has actually been really good last few seasons, because in the PCL, it's very easy to get lit up. He's got some very good stuff that allows him to be able to keep the ball in the yard. He's going to need it, because this has been a Seattle Mariners unit that, in terms of road runs per game, they've been in the top 3 in the American League. Big jumper Cal Raleigh is up to 17 home runs this season, supplying about a 375 on base, and then Ode Polanco along J.P. Crawford have been really good at being able to find a way on base as well. For Polanco, 10 home runs, about a 285 average, and you've got Mr. Crawford give you about a 385 on base. Julio Rodriguez, after a rough start to the season, he's picking it up, 9 home runs, north of a 300 on base, and then you've been able to get some relatively good production as well out of Dylan Moore, 8 home runs, 270 average, so these guys have been able to do a nice job. For the Mariners, a little bit of a hit or miss bullpen. You've got one of the best closers in all baseball, and Andres Munoz, who has been so dominant this season, but some of the long relievers have been a little bit, shall we say, hit or miss. You've had Colin Sider be shaky with a north of a 350 ERA, but Carlos Vargas is rounding into form. Casey Lugumina, Gabe Spire, they've been able to give you a sub 325 ERA, and then on the flip side, you've got yourself a Astros bullpen that has been one of the best in all baseball. So you've got the Bryans, Brian King, Brian Abreu, who've both been able to give you a sub 3 ERA. Josh Hader has been one of the better closers in all baseball, and then you've had Steven Okert really do a nice job of giving you nice innings. But for the Houston Astros, lineup has been very suspect this season. Jose Altuve is just not the Jose Altuve of old, as he's hitting for about a 256 home runs. Did have a multi-home run game to begin the series, so you'd like to see that. Isaac Paredes has up to 11 bombs, 375 on base, but Christian Walker, Brendan Rodgers, both hitting below the middle sign of 200. Victor Caratini, it's for a bit of average, but not necessarily a lot of power, and you've got Jeremy Pena give you about a 350 in terms of his on base, but you've got a few guys towards the bottom of the lineup that are just give you a big giant nothing burger whatsoever, like Yunior Diaz, who's only giving you about a 265 on base. So circumstance where with the Houston Astros, I do feel like they should be a pretty sizable underdog here. I did set the Seattle Mariners at a minus 143. I'm going to be willing to lay the money line with them, and I'm in on the over. I set my total at 8.7. 975, 976 on the betting board. The New York Yankees hit the road to face off against the Colorado Rockies. Antonio Senzatella is on the bump for Colorado. Will Warren goes for the Yankees. Yankees are between minus 280 to minus 298 favorites. Plus 240 to plus 250 is that number on Colorado. 11 to 11.5 is the total on the 11. Over is minus 115. The under is minus 105 on the 11.5. Under is between minus 120 to a minus 125. Over is between even and plus 105 for the Yankees. I set Will Warren as a minus 322 road favorite. I'd be willing to go up to about $2 on this run line. It's really that bad with the Colorado Rockies, and Antonio Senzatella is a human pinata right now. He's giving up north of 15.5 hits per 9 innings. How this guy is allowed to grace an MLB mound right now is absolutely incredible. He's got a 6.34 ERA, fielding pennant of 5.33, but 4.5 strikeouts, so 1.6 home runs per 9 innings. He has given up at least 4 runs in each out of his last 5 starts, a skid mark on the underpants of Major League Baseball. And for Will Warren, I'm still not bullish on him, but he's been a little bit better. 4.05 ERA. He's actually got a 284 fielding independent. He's not giving up a lot of homers, only about a home run per 9 innings, 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and this is the Colorado Rockies team that even when they're at home, they really don't do a great job of hitting. Like at home, they're averaging 4.2 runs per game, and Colorado is supposed to be a cheat code for offense, as you've got Jordan Beck, who's been able to give you 8 home runs thus far this season, but I mean, you've got so many guys, Brenton Doyle, Ryan McMahon, Michael Taglia, throwing their Jacob Stallings, Adel Amador, Alan Trejo, Sean Borchard, All these guys are hitting at 220 or lower. Like, you just have nobody moving the line for this team. And then it's a bullpen that honestly has not been the worst in all of baseball. They've been a little bit better than that because Jake Berg, Zach Ognos have been able to give you sub 2 ERA. You've had a few good innings out of Jimmy Erget as well, but I mean, it's not like that's necessarily been too tremendous. And for the New York Yankees, Devin Williams has been far from tremendous this year, but Luke Weaver certainly has been amazing. Been loving what I've been seeing out of him. Additionally, you've been able to get some of these guys to be able to step up, like a Francisco Cruz has been able to give you a sub 3 ERA. Yuri De Los Santos has been a good sign for them, and Jonathan Loaisiga coming off the injured list should be able to help out moving forward. And for the New York Yankees, Aaron Judge does it again yesterday. 18 home runs. He's giving you darn near 500 on base. Been absolutely insane. Trent Grisham, 12 plus homers. He's been able to north of 260. You've got Cody Bellinger, who after a rough start to the season has been really able to find it the last few weeks. He's been able to supply 8 home runs. Ben Rice, not necessarily consistent in terms of moving line, but he's able to give you 10 home runs. Yankees should be able to go out there, completely dominate this one. I'm willing to go up to about -$2 on that run line, and so I tell 11.6, so you're at the 11.5. I'm in on the over. 927, 928 on the betting board. The Philadelphia Phillies hit the road. They're facing off against the Athletics as Gunnar Hoglund is on the bump for the Athletics, and Jesus Luzardo is on the bump for the Phils. Phillies are between -171 to -185 favorites, +155 to +160. That number on the Athletics. 10 is the total. The under is -110 to a -115. Over is between -105 to a -110. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, I set them at a -169 on the money line. I'd be willing to go up to about a -112 with regards to that run line, as Jesus Luzardo has been all sorts of dominant this far this season. Right now with that run line, seeing that in the neighborhood of -110 to a -115. And for Luzardo, he's been able to supply this team with a whole bunch of punch outs, right around about 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, .98 ERA, sub 250 fielding opponent. He's been able to keep the ball in the yard, giving up only 3 home runs in his 10 starts thus far this season. And for Hoglund, he has been giving up a little bit too much of the deep ball, north of 5 ERA in his first few starts, but I think that he's going to round into form. He's been giving up north of 2 home runs per 9 innings, which I recognize that out there in Sacramento, that's a little bit lethal. But I mean, for the Philadelphia Phillies, this has not necessarily been the world's greatest home run hitting team. Kyle Schwarber has been amazing at being able to hit the deep balls. This guy entered into Saturday with 17 home runs, north of a 390 on base. Bryce Harper has been able to give you 8 home runs. After a tough start to the season, power numbers are still a little bit down, but he's been able to about a 270 for this unit. But I mean, past that, you've got a whole bunch of guys that just move line. 5 home runs or fewer out of everyone else. That's Bryson Stott, JT Realmuto, Max Kepler, Trey Turner, Nick Castellanos, all in that neighborhood. You've got Turner hitting above a 300, and then you've got Armando Sosa has been seeing a limited amount of at-bats, hitting well above a 300 for this team. For the Philadelphia Phillies, this is a bottom 12 team with regards to bullpen ERA, especially with Jose Alvarado now being out of the fold. That means that Matt Strom really needs to step up. He's been able to give you a sub 3 ERA, and right now he's pretty much the only guy in that bullpen that's giving you a sub 375 ERA. Standard Banks or Ryan Kirkering, they're hovering right around about 390 with regards to that ERA. But for the Athletics, this is a bottom 5 team themselves with regards to their bullpen ERA. They get Michael Otons off the injured list, has been less than tremendous for them. Now, I like Justin Cerner, what he's providing, a sub 2 ERA, but the likes of an Anel Perdomo, throw in there Mason Miller, guys like this who have been supplying you with north of a 5 ERA. It's been rough, and Miller was really good out of the bullpen last season, has not been thus far this season. Tyler Ferguson has been a little bit hit or miss, and for the Athletics, they're only averaging about 4.3 runs per game at home. Brent Rooker, Tyler Soderstrom, a combined 21 home runs. You've got a guy in Rooker sitting about a 255, and for Soderstrom, after a relatively good start with a home run ball, he's still been consistent in terms of moving the line. 340 on base. Jacob Wilson hitting a 335 has been rock solid, but JJ Bleday is hitting right around about a 200. Lawrence Butler has been up, down, all around this far this season, and then the guys towards the bottom of the lineup, the other Max Muncy and guys like that, Gio Urshel, they've been not necessarily giving you a ton, so I do think that Luzardo goes out there, dominates the start. I'm willing to take a shot on the under, sub by total 9.2, and for the Phillies, looking at a -112 or better on that run line. We wrap things up with 929, 930 on the betting board. The Angels playoffs to the Miami Marlins as Edward Cabrera is on the bump for the Fish, and Kyle Hendricks, the professor, goes for Los Angeles. Los Angeles is a -130 to a -140 favorite, anywhere between +120 to +122. That number on Miami with the total of 9 to 9.5. On the 9.5, under is -120. The over is even on the 9. Over is -125, and the under is +105. So my total at a 9.2 and a 9.5. I'd be willing to dive in on the under, mainly because the Miami Marlins just don't have a lot of power bats. As the professor Kyle Hendricks, well, he is being schooled all season long. For Kyle Hendricks, just not necessarily a guy to have a lot of faith in. His swing and miss stuff is just non-existent, as he's getting 5.3 strikeouts to 3 walks per 9 innings, while allowing 1.7 home runs per 9 innings. His 5.32 ERA somehow, some way is backed up by a 5.57 fielding dependent. Not good to say the least, and for Edward Cabrera, I just don't think that he even knows where the ball is going to be going, as, he's got really good swing and miss stuff, but, he just walks too many guys, 3.5 walks per 9 innings, which for his standards is actually good. He's been giving up 1.6 home runs per 9 innings as well, so a lot of suspectness there. He's a part of a Miami Marlins team that just doesn't have a lot of good pitching in general, as Anthony Bender, that bullpen has been able to supply you with a sub-3 ERA, but you've got just a lot of guys in general that have come into games that they've lit them on fire. Calvin Fauché has been providing north of a 5 ERA. You've got nothing out of Lake Bakar as well. George Ferrariano has been rough, and then for this bunch, you've got Matt Burfus, who's giving you 7 home runs, but he's hitting below the 200 Mendoza line. You've got Kyle Sowers, 10 home runs, 390 on base. He has been tremendous, but past that, it's a bunch of guys that move line. They don't even do a great job there. Augustin Ramirez, Eric Wagaman, both hitting about a 250, and to the credit of Ramirez, he's been able to give you 6 home runs at his first 100 at-bats. You've had Xavier Edwards give you 0 home runs, but he's moving line, give you about a 340, turns that on base. You've had Derek Hill, Graham Capaldi, guys like this, hit right around about at 210, so you need a little bit more there. And then for the Angels, this is a very much all-or-nothing lineup, as you've been able to get a lot of power out of Mr. Taylor Ward, 15 home runs, but he's hardly hitting above 200. Nolan Schunel has been able to give you about a 380 on base. Ori Soler, 7 home runs, 300 on base. You could use a little bit more there. Luis Rodolfo hitting a 217 with 1 home run. Not great to say the least, but Zach Neto has been able to give you 8 bombs, hitting for about a 285. Joe Adell along with Kyron Paris, both 6 home runs, both hitting below a 200 as well. And for the Angels, this has been a very rough bullpen as well. Currently dead last in the big leagues in terms of ERA. They've been a little bit better here in this run, but still, Ryan Zephyrion and Kenley Jansen are your lone 2 guys in the bullpen that have seen north of 3 innings that have a sub-5 ERA. That's not great to say the least. They rolled the dice on Hector Neris. He has been rough. Brock and Roll Burke has been terrible. Jose Fermin has been terrible. You just don't have a lot of guys in general give you good innings, so I do think that in this circumstance it's a very unique one, but the Angels have been very hot recently. I did set them on the money line at a minus 133. If you're looking at the run line, I would need at least plus 150, but right now seeing about a minus 131 out there. Want to go with that Angels money line to go along with the 9.5 under, and that'll wrap things up for the Sunday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Matt Joseph, aka Major Matt, for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, do have one of 2 ways to be able to throw those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, maybe does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, coming at you guys every single day throughout the baseball season, which means I'm back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.
If your job at a healthcare facility includes disinfecting against viruses, you know prevention is the best medicine, and maintaining healthy spaces starts with a healthy cleaning routine. Grainger's world-class supply chain helps ensure you have the quality products you need when you need them, from disinfectants and cleaning supplies to personal protective equipment, so you can help deliver a clean bill of health. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.